Thanks for tuning into the channel. Today we'll be going over another commander deck profile, this time HELGA Skittish Seer. We're doing more of a budget deck profile here for this one. Um, this one comes in at just under $50, excluding the lands, of course. If you want to run more expensive lands, you could always do that, but if you want to keep it on budget, you can just run basics. Um, but yeah, what Helga wants to do is get expensive creatures on board in order to draw cards, gain life, and make herself more powerful so she could tap for mana to do that. We run cards that'll untap her in order to make sure she gets that mana multiple times, cards that benefit off of, you know, casting expensive creatures, and cards that'll give her more +1/+1 counters and benefit off of +1/+1 counters so that we can make sure we keep doing that. If you have your own way that you'd run this deck, make sure you leave it down there in the comment section. I'm sure there's better ways, but a lot of the expensive creatures that you want to run in this deck are quite expensive themselves. So take that with a little bit of grain of salt with this deck. Yeah, but thanks for watching. Let's get into the deck profile here. So the first card that we run here is Lily Splash Mentor. It'll make it so that you can blink your creatures, have them enter with the +1/+1 counters, 4 mana itself, so you can use Helga's ability to cast it there. For cards with protection, since Helga, we want to make sure she stays on the board in order to make sure we can keep using her ability with those +1/+1 counters, of course. So she makes sure she gets the most payoff of that. Or in cards like Angelic Intervention, which will also give it a +1/+1 counter itself. Kerbis Harvest Celebrant, which will give it the +1/+1 counters on itself, but you can also remove the counters in order to make sure that Helga won't be dealt damage. Tyrant Guard. And also, by the way, both these cards are X spells, which do count for Helga's ability there, in order to cast them for 4 more mana. Tyrant Guard also gets a protection by sacrificing itself, and also gets +1/+1 counters, potentially drawing you a card if you have enough mana to do it with. Then for some ramp, other than Helga, we have cards like Arcane Signet, Beanstalk Worm. You play an additional land from your hand. Boseiju, reaches skyward, get those extra lands into your hand. Kayla's Command, in order to get those +1/+1 counters along with a land out of your deck. Kodama the East Tree. Sometimes we just don't have enough mana in order to get our creatures onto the board, so we may as well use Kodama to do it there, since we could use Helga's ability to cast it and get the benefit off of having a creature with 4 more mana. Llanowar Loam Speaker for a little bit of a mana dork there. Moldering Gym / Weight Room for our little bit of ramp there as well. Undo Giant. Since we do have a couple of blink spells in here, it does help having this creature enter in order to get those lands out of your deck. This way we can make sure we keep doing it time and time again. Overgrown Zealot, a little bit of a mana dork. For Extinct Atlas, just because we ran out of Commander Spheres, so we needed something that does something similar. Primeval Herald, same thing with Undo Giant, we can potentially blink it in order to do it again. It costs 4 mana, so it does pretty similar things, but this one also happens when it attacks. This is, honestly, wait, this one's 2/4, and this one's a 4/2. Oh no, this one's a 3/1. I was going to say, it's basically an upgrade of the other version. Roamer's Routine, it has a harmonized ability, so we can make sure we do it again and again by using our expensive creatures in order to get that ability off more than once. But also, just getting a land out of the deck really helps there. Saga Wildling, once again, an over 4 cost creature that could also get us a land. Helps us out there. Scale the Heights in order to get those +1/+1 counters and play an additional land. Yavimaya Elder in order to get those extra lands into our hand and a little bit of draw power while we're at it. Eudora Grove Gardener, over 4 mana, helps us get those extra lands onto the battlefield. We have Absent Battle Priest. So yeah, we do also have cards that want to benefit off those +1/+1 counters while we're at it. So in cards like Absent Battle Priest in order to give them lifelink, Absent Falconer to give them flying, Einok Bondkin to give them first strike, Ambitious Dragonborn, a creature that could just enter is really powerful, costs 4 mana. Will basically enter with whatever Helga's power toughness. Yep, power. So normally it'll enter something else, but if we get Helga strong enough, it could enter us that. Armosaur Guide, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, helps us out there, over 4 mana, puts on potentially Helga. Basri's Alkalite, which will get us those +1/+1 counters on up to 2 creatures you control. Botanical Brawler, While it doesn't put counters onto Helga and it's not over 4 mana, it will keep getting counters anytime Helga gets counters, which could make it pretty powerful there, especially with the trample. Broodlord, it's an X spell that'll also help us distribute those +1/+1 counters, which we don't technically need to use Helga to cast it, but if we use something else to cast it, then put those counters onto Helga. That's a big payoff there. Conclave Mentor, get the additional +1/+1 counters since we're bringing in plenty of those anyway. Domesticated Hydra, it's a monstrous creature. It has trample, plenty of +1/+1 counters, may as well get that payoff. Enduring Scale Lord, same thing with the Hamza deck. We're going to be playing +1/+1 counters something, so may as well get them on this creature as well. Also over 4 mana to cast, benefiting Helga there. Gnarly Colony, may as well get them trample. Golden Scale, Aeronaut, put in +1/+1 counter on Helga, give her flying. This way, in case we need to swing in for a little bit of commander damage, we always can. Good Fortune Unicorn, creatures enter with +1/+1 counters. Oh, let's scroll down here. Where were we? Oh, Invasion of Moag, give our creatures those +1/+1 counters. Juniper Order Ranger, over 4 mana, +1/+1 counters onto our creatures. I wonder if I could tally how many times I said +1/+1 counters in this video. Luminarch Aspirant, keep putting those +1/+1 counters onto Helga every turn to make it so we get more mana. It's an X spell here with Mikaeus. In order to get those +1/+1 counters, move those counters onto Helga in order to make sure we use her for more mana. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with +1/+1 counter when it enters, so if we use Helga's ability, it'll make it so Helga gets that +1/+1 counter. Put the +1/+1 counter onto Helga, make it so Helga cast even more. Phantom Flock, a little bit of protection there. Oh wait, sorry. If damage would be dealt to Phantom Flock, prevent that damage, remove the +1/+1 counter. It's a good +1/+1 counter card. Plead Provisioner, give Helga flying. Sorry, no, it doesn't give her flying. Gives her a +1/+1 counter, which could potentially give her flying if we have the other cards on board. Possessed Goat. We don't really have that many cheap creatures, so we figured we need a little something there. Renegade Crassus. Whenever this creature evolves, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature control, +1/+1 counter on it. It'll normally evolve when we cast an expensive creature, and Helga will get the counters from casting those expensive creatures, so this will put the extra +1/+1 counter onto her. Silver Flame Ritual, put the +1/+1 counter and give Vigilance there to Helga, so she could swing in and get her ability off in the same time. Tiergon Prime, when this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter and +1 counter on target attacking creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn. Once again, we need some way to win with this deck, so potentially get those enough counters for commander damage on Helga. Sagu Pummeler, a little bit of reach, a little bit of +1/+1 counters. Saltwater Patrol, it's just some +1/+1 counters on itself. Woodborne Behemoth, trampling 8/8, a little bit scary. Bossier's Lieutenant, get those tokens off of the creatures that we have on the +1/+1 counters. Also 4 mana itself there. Custody Soulbinders, 4 mana. Remove the counters from this creature, get the tokens. This one we use mostly for the dual land portion of it. Monkey Cage, in order to cast our expensive creatures, in order to get a bunch of tokens there. Then we have cards like Brolyus, Fierce Bandit. It'll draw us a card, but mostly get that land out of our hand onto the board, and keep powering it up in order to deal plenty of damage there with it. Modi, Celebrant of Bounty, as Cascade, and then if we have cards that'll cost 6 or more to cast, it'll give those cards that Cascade, which with all these X cost spells we have in this deck, it does work out pretty well. I think this card may get cut if I were to cut a card from this deck, just because we don't run I'd say enough cards that cost 6 or more. But there are definitely more you could run. Lenore, Autumn Sovereign, get the +1/+1 counters, get a little bit of draw power. Rosecott Knight, once again, a little bit of draw power. Tatiova, get the draw power and a little bit of life gain by playing lands, which, you're always going to be playing lands. Then we want to untap Helga so that we can use the ability again and again. So we're in cards like Freed from the Realm and Kelpie Guide. We want to deal the damage, so we run cards like Battlefront, Krushak, and Tuskguard Captain, and Biome Mass Mutation, so we could potentially win with that commander damage. But that's the overall deck profile there. Like I said, this one's probably a 1 if I were to rate it on a scale from 1 to 5 with the new Commander bracket system. It's not necessarily a good deck, but is it a fun deck? Yeah, I'd say so. Are there definitely ways you could upgrade it? Yeah, you could probably stay tuned to the channel and maybe we'll do that at some point. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a good rest of the day.